Okay, folks, violence. So as you know, the reason that we are in this situation in the stock market is because of this situation with inflation and how that relates to the Fed having to destroy the economy in order to get these pricing pressures down. And you already know that one of the biggest drivers of inflation are energy costs, which are skyrocketing. When energy prices go up, it's a mess. It causes a huge profit margin crunching for any company that offers a good or a service. It causes a massive crunching of how much money the average consumer has to spend because they have to spend more and more on energy. And consumers are very, very aware that prices are going up, especially when it relates to gas. The first sign a consumer has of inflation is often at the pump. As gas prices have gone up, consumer inflation expectations have as well, as this Bloomberg chart shows. But when it comes down to what is causing this massive shortage of oil and thus the massive increase in costs per barrel, and of course a little bit more down the line, gasoline prices, there's a lot of pointing of fingers in different directions, and it's leaving the average person very, very uninformed about what the real cause and situation here is. Quite frankly, it takes a lot of time to research and dig into the real cause. So a lot of people are just like, you know what? Hey, I have to pay higher prices. I don't want to spend all my time researching why I'm paying higher prices too. That's time that I could spend under earning inflation. Thank you, economy. But seriously, it does take a lot of time to research, and the average person is just not doing that research. And I want to make sure that everybody that watches these videos is above average. And I know you guys already are, but we're going to get you to the next level today. Luckily for you, Charlie is a man of the people, and he went through and did all the research for you so you don't have to. And he's going to save you a lot of time with this no BS breakdown. Hopefully this can help you make better decisions as an investor and a trader, and also as a citizen of whatever country you're from. And then at the end of the video, we will be breaking down the latest on trade ideas and what is working in this market, including our lovely EVFM play, which doubled this morning from our ZipTrader U briefing price. What is the deal on that? Is there more room to run? We'll discuss it. But first, a word from our sponsor, Moomoo. So this market is ruthless, and so you better be prepared to fight with the best tools behind you. You better have a platform that allows you to do top-tier risk management on the spot, gain rapid insights, and of course help you find and execute on effective strategies. Folks, you need a platform that was built for active and elite traders just like you. And that is where Moomoo comes in. Moomoo helps you monitor market movements, perform deep technical analysis, quickly screen for stocks that meet your criteria, and also provides a community where traders can exchange ideas amongst one another. Moomoo offers crucial features like fast fills, AI monitors, AI price predictions, heat maps, stock compares, and of course, candlestick screening searches so you can search for patterns that you're looking for. Moomoo is a one-stop trading app that makes it easy for traders to do everything they need in order to gain that extra edge on the market. And we've arranged where if you sign up and deposit just $100 with them using our link down below, you'll get up to 10 free stocks and 1 share of Lucid. That's right, folks, 10 free stocks and 1 share of Lucid just for signing up and depositing a small amount with our link down below. Meanwhile, you're also upgrading your trading tools to the next level. Sounds like a good deal to me. Thank you, Moomoo, for sponsoring this video. Now back to the content. Okay, so oil prices right now are driven by a shortage of oil at the same time where demand has rebounded from pandemic lows, and we've printed tons and tons of money to help artificially pump that demand even higher, which is lovely. But why is there a shortage of oil? Well, let's look at global production versus global consumption. Consumption in brown has far outpaced production in blue since about Q2 of 2020. 6 quarters of consumption booming at a period of time where production lagged had the inevitable conclusion of rallying up prices as supplies got shorter and shorter. That's basic supply and demand. But then in February of this year, of course, Russia invaded Ukraine, which meant the global energy production chain and the global supply chain for energy as a whole got very, very compartmentalized. You had major markets getting shut off from other markets, and those other markets had to go and chase up demand in completely different new markets which never had those levels of demand before, which meant whoop. And that's why today it costs you more to drive to Taco Bell than it does to eat at Taco Bell. As of 2021, Russia was one of the biggest oil producers just behind the US. So if that oil is getting segmented away and countries in places like Europe have to bid up oil again in more expensive and less efficient markets, all of a sudden the benchmark price for oil everywhere just skyrockets. And even though the US didn't buy a significant amount of oil from Russia, never really did, well, US oil prices are of course still benchmarked globally, so it still has a massive impact. And then there's the other problem, which is a huge point of contention and debate, but that is the domestic US crude oil production. US crude oil production is still well below where it was pre-pandemic, which is not just crude, but it's also rude. By the way, my jokes were better before inflation. Now you get twice as many jokes, but half the quality. Thank you, Jerome Powell. But U.S. oil production was a problem before Russia, but it's an even more embarrassing problem after Russia. Production is slow at the same time where you have a global shortage of oil and war essentially tearing apart the supply chain globally. Yet oil production in the U.S. has been slow, a little slow salamander, in reacting to that. Meanwhile, the U.S. is estimated to have some of the biggest global oil reserves in all of the world. And while we have some of the biggest oil reserves in the world, our leaders are saying, hey, actually, we're helpless. It's a Putin price hike that's forced upon us, and there's nothing that we can do. We're not powerful enough to fix this problem. But the U.S. has the sole capacity to dramatically change the game and increase the overall global supply of energy, which in turn would bring down prices globally, fix national security risks that come with depending on a global supply chain that is very, very dependent on Russia, even if we don't trade with Russia much when it comes to energy. If all the other countries we trade with Russia, it still has a massive, massive impact on our pricing here, which you can see by looking at any gas station. And increasing production dramatically would also help bail out our allies, which again are dependent on really bad policy. Yet the U.S. oil industry is of course private, and they haven't really responded much. And there's a real reason for that, which we'll get into later, that has to do with government policies dating back the last few decades. But the fact remains the same. The production of oil by U.S. energy companies is essentially flat, despite the fact that U.S. supply is needed on the global market more than ever before. And a big problem here is Europe's awful energy policy. They've basically been committing themselves to producing less and less oil and petroleum overall for decades. An insanely sharp decline, and as a result, look at how much their oil dependency has increased over the last 20 years. When you don't decrease your consumption at the same pace you're decreasing your production, all of a sudden you're bidding more demand for less supply, and globally benchmark prices have to go up as a result. Worse yet, if you look at the EU's imports were heavily Russia focused and still are. You look at where EU imports crude oil from, 29.8% of it in 2018 was from Russia. When that is under threat, or you're trying to sanction that supply away, this demand has to go and chase up prices everywhere else, which only has so much supply. These carriers, these players over here only have so much supply. If all of this demand that they got from Russia now has to go and try to find a home over here, that's going to cause massive, not just inefficiencies, but also huge supply and demand imbalances. First of all, there's a reason they went to Russia for the first place, because it was cheaper and easier and more efficient. Not national security wise, but in terms of the first things I mentioned. So first you have a price hike because you're going to all these other markets, and then the second price hike is they don't have all that supply available for you, so you have to go and then bid it up a lot faster. And we are talking about oil, but you see similar trends in natural gas and pretty much every energy commodity. So why is Europe doing this? Well, basically they broke their own legs before they had a wheelchair. In the name of pushing towards clean energy, they gutted forms of traditional energy production, but they didn't think to make sure that clean energy production caught up first before they did that. So instead of producing energy themselves, they instead went to countries like Russia, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia to bail them out. Regardless of your opinion on clean energy, I'm pro clean energy, but regardless of your opinion, it's just common sense that you don't gut production of something before you've produced an adequate amount of the alternative for that something. Or you've secured trading relationships that are able to bail you out if things go bad, but trading relationships that don't also cost you national security or geopolitical concessions. But energy policy in the United States follows a similar tone. Sadly, it feels like there's a lot of leadership in the US that are just like, you know what, we've had a great run with this superpower thing, but now it's simply time that we spend the majority of our GDP on energy costs and pass the torch over to the Middle East or to Russia. Obviously, these countries are huge fans of rising prices. They're seeing huge booms in taxable profits. In fact, in most of these big oil producing countries, the government owns the oil production completely. So this is just a huge win, a direct win to them. And the reason this is so is because US policy towards the oil industry has been hostile. Not nearly as hostile as Europe, a completely different scale, but still hostile enough where we're having a massive problem getting people interested in investing and actually building out infrastructure to produce more oil here. The US government has basically been telling domestic oil production leaders and investors for decades that they are investing in a sunset industry, one that a future administration and a future Congress someday will completely obliterate because we don't want dirty energy anymore. Meanwhile, while setting a hostile tone towards the industry, you've also seen a huge decrease in the amount of permitting, in the amount of policies that benefit new investment. All of these things have culminated in energy producers having very little motivation to actually produce. Essentially, the US government over the last few decades has been slowly but consistently trying to gut the oil industry. But of course, when things go bad, the US government has to point at that oil industry and say they're to blame for that gutting. Imagine if you had a significant other and you told her, hey, we're having a lot of fun right now. I need you right now. But about 6 months from now, I'm going to send you home packing. This is a sunset relationship. Well, guess what? She wouldn't want to be investing much in your relationship, and I'd be surprised if she stuck around the full 6 months. Yet that's basically been what's happening in the US. Here's a specific example. Think about the Keystone Pipeline that was supposed to help take oil supply around the US and Canada. If a project can be canceled or shut down on a minute's notice by a simple change of who's in power at the White House or which party controls Congress, and the message is loud and clear that things are going to get more hostile over time, well, what incentive is there for oil investors to invest in building out more infrastructure? There's zero, because they're literally telling you, hey, we're going to shut you down. You're going to be stupid if you invest more. And then all of a sudden they need you to invest, and they're like, please invest more. You're greedy for not investing. I saw this big article that bashed oil companies for buying back shares the last 10 years instead of investing that money in building out more infrastructure to produce here in the United States. And they're saying that, again, oil companies are greedy for doing this. Really, you go out and you constantly berate oil companies as dirty energy producers, and we need less of them, and then you try to block them everywhere they try to invest, and then you're shocked when they'd rather invest money in buying back their own shares. Let's be real though, at the same time, are oil producers reaping in tons of profits from this price hike? 100%. But at the same time, are they incentivized at all to reinvest that capital into building out more infrastructure to boost production? No, because we're too damn stupid. In any other industry, companies would reinvest their profits so they can make more profits down the road. If they could build out production capacity really, really quickly, they make tons of money right now. The problem though is that it costs so much money to build out that capacity that it takes like years of these kinds of prices to really pay off. Oil companies aren't stupid. They know that the minute that they build it all out, oil prices are going to be coming down dramatically, and government priorities are going to go back to, hey, you shouldn't be producing oil here at home. So again, you can blame little things here and there like permitting, companies hiking prices maybe faster than they really need to, and you can also highlight supply and labor shortages in terms of even being able to start up the production capacity that's already built. But the fact of the matter is that US and especially 100 times more European policies have created a massive supply and demand imbalance all over the world, and we're all suffering now. And by the way, before I shite too much on US energy policy, the truth is that we already produce enough oil to meet our own needs here. If we were isolationist or we wanted to screw over all of our allies that are now depending on us even more because of this Russia supply kill-off, then we'd probably have gotten away with this for a lot longer. But because we do allow exports globally, well, our prices are benchmarked globally. And because that's the case, all of a sudden, the lack of production is now becoming a national security risk to us and a economic security risk to us. And for the record, again, personally, super pro clean energy. But gutting traditional forms of energy before that industry is even developed is a huge, huge mistake, and we're seeing that in country after country after country. It's not too late for the United States. I hope that they wake up and smell the flowers. I believe the science on climate change is real, and clean energy is a very, very important goal. But the science on sending money to both frenemies and enemies is even worse and more clear-cut. Ask the average Ukrainian if they're more worried about temperature increases 3 degrees over the next 100 years, or if they're more worried about Russia, and I guarantee you no one's going to be talking about that first one. There's levels to threats. You have to deal with the imminent security threats first so that you can deal with the other threats that are more down the line. If somebody gave me a choice of eating only fast food here in the United States, or I could eat all the healthiest items in the world, but I have to live in Iraq or Syria and I have to buy them from them, I'd say, you know what, give me that double-double. It's not that eating healthy isn't better for you. You'd have to be a moron to think that. But it's the immediate risk of going to Iraq for that healthy eating that is the problem. Okay, but anyways, that caps off today's video. I do want to give you some updates on plays, and then we'll call it a night. EVFM we briefed on this morning as it was a Roe v. Wade trend contraceptive trade opportunity. My bull setup criteria was at minimum a holding of support at 60 cents. It did a little fakey McFakey at open in an attempt to break below 60, and then it reaffirmed itself back over it and ran up to 132. That was more than a double from the original briefing price. Now, I don't know how long the Roe v. Wade trade is going to last, but with any trend, the most important thing is looking for proof of concept. You have to make sure your stocks are showing proof of concept and a retention of value. If this falls tomorrow or Wednesday and retains above 80 cents or perhaps $1, all of a sudden you're ready for building on of a next rally. But keep in mind, having standards is important. We briefed on 2 Roe v. Wade trades this morning for similar reasons. EVFM and AGRX both were showing proof of concept in the pre-market, but only one of them them met our bull criteria and the other met our bear criteria. The next one is box D. We originally briefed on this one last week because it had been obliterated and was showing some proof of concept at having a contrarian rally and residual bounce. It's been moving somewhat, but so far not much action, mostly a failed play as of right now, but I see opportunity if it fits certain criteria for proof of concept. Keep this on your radar. I believe that if you get a breakout past this 295-ish $3 post breakdown resistance level, you're going to see some nice froth. That is my criteria for that. And then of course, make sure to watch my video yesterday if you want to break down on BBIG, Redbox, Ravino, and the other plays that we were looking at heading into this week. At minimum, always look for that proof of concept. Some of these plays have run quite a lot, and so if they're going to die off, they're going to die off, and the momentum has to be restarted later down the line, and a lot of times it just doesn't work. So make sure that you have some standards for what you're trading, right? Anyways, that caps off the video. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you, Moomoo, for sponsoring us. Get your up to 10 free stocks plus a share of Lucid with our link down below. And of course, just a reminder, our ZipTrader U program is 50% off when you type in coupon code America50 before checkout. And that's one-time fee for lifetime access to our step-by-step lessons, private chat, daily morning briefings, and of course, all of our other trading resources that you can learn more about by clicking the link down below. Have a good one, folks. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.